What is up, guys? We're back with more picks and predictions. This weekend, we have a fight night in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. We got 11 fights on this card. The card is headlined by Israel Adesanya versus Nassourdine Imavov. That's obviously a pretty good fight in the middleweight division. Adesanya on a 2-fight losing streak to DDP and Sean Strickland. Before that, he did knock out Alex Pereira. But he has lost 3 out of his last 4 fights. And then Imavov is on a little bit of a win streak coming off that win to Brendan Allen, and now looking to see if he can get in the title picture for the middleweight division. So interesting fight there in the main event. We got Nurmagomedov in the co-main against Michael Page. That's probably the fight I'm looking forward to the most on this card. But yeah, let's quickly recap UFC 311 on the betting side, and then hop into the picks and predictions for this weekend. So to recap the premium bets for UFC 311, we had 4 bets out for the card. Pretty painful way for it to go down. We hit 3 of our 4 bets, but it didn't matter. Our biggest bet was on Nurmagomedov. My reason for this was very simple. I think skill for skill, Merab can't match Umar, and I think that kind of showed in the first 2 rounds. Umar definitely won both of those rounds, and prior to this, Umar did go 5 rounds with Corey Sandhagen, so I didn't think the cardio was going to be an issue. I would definitely think that Umar was able to get 3 out of the 5 rounds, and he almost did. I'm not even considering the broken hand and whatnot, but at the end of the day, I was really confident Umar. I actually bet him when the line opened at minus 180. He did close around like minus 250 or something around that, but I bet him at minus 180 when the line opened. Had a hammer on him. I actually had parlayed that with Makhachev when he was fighting Arman Tsarukyan, but that bet voided. So it ended up just being a straight bet on Umar Nurmagomedov, which I was fine with holding on to. We lost 3.75 units there. That's one of the biggest bets I've actually placed for premium. So yeah, that one's on me. But then the other 3 bets, everything was hitting clean. Had a little bit of money on Ailin Perez money line. She definitely squeaked that one out. Got takedowns at the right time to win that fight on the scorecards. We had Jilton Almeida plus Grant Dawson. Both those guys were money. Grant Dawson, absolutely dominated that matchup. And then Jilton Almeida got the first round finish. And then we had one bet on Bernardo Silva's money line and then the Dawson versus Ferreira fight to start round 2. I just took a pretty conservative line on the starting round 2 there. Obviously, both of those hit pretty easily. So yeah, 3 or 4 of bets did load up on the one that we missed. So interesting night there. But yeah, we'll move on to the picks and predictions for UFC Riyadh. Kicking off the card, we have a really trash-ass fight. We have Hamdy Abdelwahab versus Jamal Pogues. I'm going to take Jamal Pogues to win this fight. Obviously, this is a low-level heavyweight fight. Definitely do not want to be betting any money on a fight like this. So if you do, be very cautious. Fights like this are pretty terrible to bet on. But I'm going to go with Jamal Pogues to win. I think that, Hamdy Abdelwahab, he hasn't fought since 2022. That was his last fight against Dontel Mays, which got overturned because he was on a fuck ton of performance enhancement drugs. So he did get suspended for a little bit. Now he's back. So first MMA fight in 3 years, basically. And when it comes to someone like Jamal Pogues has obviously been way more active than that. And on top of that, I think Jamal Pogues has okay boxing. He's still pretty trash, obviously, but he has okay boxing. And Abdelwahab is an Olympic wrestler, so he's going to want to get takedowns to win this fight. I don't normally trust heavyweights when it comes to the wrestling in this type of scenario. Obviously, these are low-level fights. That's why I would trust someone like a Jilton Almeida, but not someone like a Hamdy Abdelwahab. So I don't think he can get the timely takedowns to win rounds. I'm going to go with Jamal Pogues to win this fight. Like I said, I wouldn't bet here, though. And yeah, we'll move on to the next one. All right, up next, we have Lucas Alexander versus Bogdan Grad. I'm pretty high on Lucas Alexander in this matchup. The odds don't really reflect that, though, which is why I've been hesitant to, actually play Lucas Alexander. Is there something I'm missing? Maybe you guys can let me know in the comments when it comes to this matchup. And Tapology also has, Bogdan Grad picked at 83%. So I think maybe there's something I'm missing. But I watched, Bogdan Grad's Dana White Contender Series performance. It was not good whatsoever, in my opinion. Michael Aswell, boxing background, was just tagging Bogdan Grad up quite a bit. And Bogdan Grad, lots of unnecessary movements, lots of, spinning attacks that just kind of don't really matter. I think someone like Lucas Alexander is very poised on the feet, great Muay Thai. He also has, pretty good training partners. So I think someone like Lucas Alexander, quick on the feet, great counter striker. I think all these unnecessary movements, unnecessary shitty feints, random spinning attacks from Bogdan Grad, I think Alexander can definitely counter the fuck out of him in those scenarios. I think that on the feet, Bogdan Grad's just going to throw a lot of nonsense that, just won't really do much to Lucas Alexander. I think Lucas Alexander can, tag him at the right times, counter-strike him up on the feet, and then I think he does have the takedown defense kind of hold up. I think Bogdan Grad probably the one shooting takedowns in this fight, and I'm not going to be here picking Bogdan Grad to beat Lucas Alexander in a fight where he has to get a bunch of takedowns to win. There's no chance. So yeah, I'm going to go with Lucas Alexander to win this fight. I think that I think he could actually get a knockout on Bogdan Grad here. Bogdan Grad's been knocked out by Tom Nolan in a contender series fight in 2023. And then, I mean, he's never been knocked out outside of that. But I think that Lucas Alexander can find a knockout here. I think there's a bunch of bullshit that Bogdan Grad throws on the feet that Alexander's just going to be, like, not there for that. He's going to be able to, be quick, be able to counter-strike him well. I think his takedown defense does hold up. And, yeah, I think he does find a knockout. So give me the underdog. Or maybe he moved to a favorite now. The line's been kind of flipping back and forth between these two. So give me Lucas Alexander. I think, that Jekka knockout, he's doing well in that round. A little bit weird where he went for a kick, kind of fell to his back. And then as he was getting up and, like, looks over his shoulder, Jekka's just in the perfect position to throw, like, a right hook hammer or left hook hammer, something like that. And he just kind of gets knocked out. So weird positioning for Lucas Alexander. I think he just got caught, made a real bad mistake in that one. But I think he definitely beat someone like Bogdan Grad. So give me Lucas to get this one done. Up next, we have Mayra Bueno Silva versus Jasmine Jasudavicius. I'm going to go with Jasmine to win this fight. I think that's going to come down to the wrestling. We know that she's going to want to pressure wrestle the entire match here. And we know that Bueno Silva's cardio can be pretty suspect from time to time. I also think that, the wrestling's probably going to open up some stuff on the feet for Jasmine as well. I think it's just going to come down to she's just going to grind and outwork Bueno Silva. And I like that a lot in women's matchups, especially when you have someone like Jasmine who's just going to be willing to outwork her opponent. Things going to look pretty good for her on the scorecards here. I like her to get it done. I think Bueno Silva is also pretty good on the ground to not get subbed or, give up any really dominant positions to Jasmine. So I don't think Jasmine's going to get it done with her wrestling, timing these takedowns, winning the rounds, getting it done on the scorecards. Up next, we have Terrance McKinney versus Damir Hadzovic. Now, McKinney's going to be the pick in this fight. I think, he's just much more talented. He's better everywhere than Damir Hadzovic. The interesting thing in this matchup, though, is just that, with Terrance McKinney, you can never trust his cardio. You can never trust his chin. Those are things that just, kind of roll with it. He's coming off that absolutely brutal head kick knockout against Esteban Ribovic. And Ribovic is good, so, it's nothing wrong. But at the same time, he literally got knocked out instantly in round one, 37 seconds into round one. So can't trust his chin whatsoever when it comes to Terrance McKinney. And that's why there's no chance I'll be betting Terrance McKinney at minus 470. Now, I think that something that's interesting in this matchup is that, someone like McKinney who's just, like getting all these finishes or, he just gets absolutely fucked. In a matchup like this where he's just much better than Damir everywhere. Damir is also 40 years old, so, he's just going to be like on smoke compared to Damir Hadzovic in this matchup. I think that his decision prop is plus 900, and, I'm not going to bet this fight, but if I was going to, I would sprinkle something there just because Hadzovic is, super durable. McKinney could pull off a sub, though. His juice is pretty good. I don't see him getting the knockout. I do think that if it is going to happen, it's going to be a sub. But, plus 900 for the decision, not horrible. Obviously, I'm like kind of shooting for something there in general. But Terrance McKinney's going to be the pick. He's better everywhere. And yeah, like I said, though, would not trust him at minus 500. Not in my wheelhouse. Maybe if you want to do that, go ahead. And yeah, we'll move on to the next one. Next up, we have the GOAT, Shamil Gaziev versus Thomas Petersen. Now, both these guys are the absolute, body type of heavyweight that you just don't want to watch. It's Blob 1 versus Blob 2. But, Shamil Gaziev is the GOAT of all Blobs. I think that he should be able to get this one done against Thomas Petersen. Now, the interesting thing is both these guys do kind of lean towards the wrestling side more. We know Shamil Gaziev, he has kind of some power in his hands, but nothing crazy, kind of the same power that almost all heavyweights probably carry, including Thomas Petersen. And then when it comes to the wrestling, Thomas Petersen wants to wrestle all the time. Shamil Gaziev does want to wrestle as well quite a bit. I think that neither of these guys are probably going to get real takedowns in this matchup. This is going to be an absolute sloppy fight. But I just think that, Shamil Gaziev, I think, can control the wrestling exchanges. I think for the most part, he's going to make Thomas Petersen, carry his weight up against the fence, kind of what he did in his last fight. And we know Gaziev, the cardio was a problem against Rosenstruik. But his last fight, he went 15 minutes, got a decision in a 3-rounder. So he can go 15. He did seem to, have improved cardio in his last fight against kind of compared to the first one against Rosenstruik. And that was his second UFC fight. He kind of took a big step up in a 5-round main event. So, interesting. I just think that Shamil Gaziev, like I said, up against the fence, win rounds, make Thomas Petersen carry his weight, kind of dominate the clinch and wrestling exchanges there. And that's kind of how he's going to get this one done. Probably just, some of those like random strikes in the clinch as well. So I'm taking Shamil Gaziev. I think he does get it done. He is the GOAT. And yeah, we'll move on to the next one. All right, up next we have Naimov versus Kaan Ofli. I'm going to go with Naimov. I really like Naimov in this spot. He's coming off a loss, third round submission to Felipe Lima. Now the thing is, Felipe Lima is really good. We just saw Felipe Lima, pretty much dominate Miles Johns. And I like Miles Johns. Miles Johns pretty well rounded. So someone like Felipe Lima losing in that third round sub, not horrible on the Muhammad Naimov side. Also, I think Naimov was winning that fight leading into round 3. I have to rewatch it, but I looked at the scorecards. Scorecards had it basically even going into round 3, which, not horrible. But then, in my opinion, I thought Naimov won 1 and 2. So I thought Naimov was at least to the minimum keeping up with Felipe Lima in that matchup. And Felipe Lima is super legit. So Naimov can, kind of compete at that level. And then we have Kaan Ofli making his UFC debut. Ofli's not bad. I think, jiu-jitsu is kind of his base. He's going to want this fight on the ground, but I don't think he has the better wrestling in this matchup. Definitely the better jiu-jitsu, but like I said, not the better wrestling. And I think the striking also goes to Naimov. So I think Naimov definitely has a bunch more paths to win this matchup. I think, he should be good on the feet. Should be good on the ground. I think he can wrestle if he needs to. And, I think he can stay safe from Ofli's, offensive jiu-jitsu in this fight. So I like Naimov in this matchup. I like him to get a bounce back win. Tough loss to Felipe Lima, but let's get him back in the win column. I like Naimov to win this one, probably on the scorecards. All right, up next we have Fares Ziam versus Mike Davis. I really like this matchup. I think that, there's a lot of stuff to unpack here. I do think there's been a bunch of weird stuff going with the betting line as well. Fares Ziam open as a plus 200 underdog. Mike Davis and Fares Ziam are now kind of edging towards pick'em. Fares Ziam I think might be at like a plus 120 underdog now. And I kind of get it. I like Ziam to win this fight, and I'll tell you why. I think that Mike Davis is really good, really talented, super well-rounded as well. He's good on the feet. He can definitely wrestle. The one issue with him is he does, get injured quite often, which kind of has him outside the octagon more than needed. His last fight was early 2024. Before that, his last fight was in October 2022. So he's only fought twice since 2022. The last time he lost was in 2019 to Gilbert Burns. I think that was his UFC debut as well. So, good fighter, gets injured quite a bit, has to sit on the sidelines, so doesn't kind of get a little streak rolling. And it's interesting because he is getting a little bit older. He's 32 years old now, and I mean, that's not old, but he's supposed to be a prospect. Been in the UFC since 2019, but just has not been able to string together a bunch of fights due to a bunch of injuries. And then we get to Fares Ziam. Fares Ziam, obviously, staying a bit more active. He's coming off that knockout win to Matt Frivola in September of last year. And I think that the good thing about someone like Fares Ziam is he can definitely slow this fight down and maintain the pace. I don't see Mike Davis being able to, just like super out-wrestle Fares Ziam and just kind of ragdoll him. I don't see that happening. Maybe he does get a takedown or two, but I think Ziam's get-up game should be fine. I think that, his takedown defense should also hold up. So when it comes to the striking, Davis is definitely going to be more dangerous. I think, the Ziam knockout to Matt Frivola, I don't think you put too much stock into that. Ziam is a lot more of, a decision point fighter. So Ziam's not really going to be super dangerous on the feet, but I think Davis will carry the danger. On the other hand, I think Ziam can definitely control the pace, slow it down. He has a little bit of a reach advantage, and if he fights behind that jab, which I think he's good at doing, he can definitely kind of take away a lot of the wild stuff that Davis is going to try to do. So as long as he doesn't get into a firefight on the feet, I think that he can keep this matchup standing, keep it in space, slow the fight down, and as a dog, I like Ziam to get it done. So I'm going to take Fares Ziam to win. It's interesting. I mean, Davis, like I said, super well-rounded, does have skills everywhere, so it's going to be close. Definitely at the plus 200 tag, I think Ziam was kind of worth it. The line is definitely, tightening. People are kind of seeing that, so we'll see how it goes. I like Ziam to win, though, and we'll move on to the next one. All right, up next, we got Said Nurmagomedov versus Vinicius Oliveira, and, bro, I like the dog in this matchup again. Give me Vinicius Oliveira to get this one done. Now, I might be a little bit biased here. I did hammer Vinicius Oliveira at plus 200 against Ricky Simone. He definitely got that one done. And, Ricky Simone is, that all-out wrestler type of style. So, in this matchup, Said Nurmagomedov, I mean, contrary to what his last name might seem, he's not a wrestler. He is a striker primarily. He can wrestle, though. He can shoot some takedowns, and he does have decent chokes, primarily guillotines. In this matchup, I think that both these guys are long, lengthy strikers. So, we're going to see who's the better striker overall. Now, Said Nurmagomedov, I think that he's used to, being pretty long in his division. When it comes to Vinicius Oliveira, I like Vinicius. I think he can definitely throw more volume than Said Nurmagomedov in this fight. I think he'd be more chaotic. It just depends on, can he get caught in that chaos, with something stupid, with a random takedown here and there, maybe. But in this matchup, I think, a lot of it's going to be standing. I like Oliveira. I also think that, Jonathan Martinez kind of broke Said Nurmagomedov later in that matchup. So the later this fight goes on, I like it for Vinicius, man. I think we can get, maybe round 1 goes to Said. Round 2 is close, give it to Vinicius. Going into round 3, if Vinicius has the momentum, I definitely think he can lock this fight up by winning round 3. We saw him go 3 hard rounds with Ricky Simone, unwavering cardio in that one. And then on the other side, we saw how, Said Nurmagomedov let that Jonathan Martinez fight kind of slip. So I like Oliveira. I'm going to take Oliveira to win this one. I don't think Said Nurmagomedov is going to get this one done. And yeah, we'll move on to the next one. Up next, we got some heavyweights that, actually have some skill. And that's Sergey Pavlovich versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. And I'm going to want Sergey Pavlovich to win this one. I think people are a little bit low on Pavlovich nowadays, which kind of makes sense. His last win was against Curtis Blades. Obviously, that was a dominant win. Got the first round knockout in that matchup. And then since then, he's on a 2-fight losing streak to Tom Aspinall. I mean, nothing wrong with losing to Tom Aspinall. And then Alexander Volkov, which, people thought he would win. He was a minus 200 favorite going to that Volkov fight. And Volkov just fought the perfect fight, stayed behind his jab, used his length, just never let Pavlovich inside. And for like the entire fight, was able to, lock up a unanimous decision there. So going to this Rozenstruik fight, it's interesting because, Jairzinho does have the Muay Thai background. He actually has a pretty good jab as well. He can definitely fight behind his jab as well. So interesting one. The only difference between, Rozenstruik and Volkov is Jairzinho doesn't have the same length of Volkov. So fighting behind that jab, Pavlovich might, he will definitely still be in range. Pavlovich actually does have the reach advantage in this matchup. He has an 84-inch reach to Rozenstruik's 78-inch reach. At least that's what's listed on Tapology. So Sergey Pavlovich with the reach advantage. So even if Rozenstruik is, fighting behind that jab like Volkov was, it's going to be hard to replicate Volkov's success just because Pavlovich will still be in that range. And when it comes to, finding that kill shot, I think Pavlovich is still that guy to find that kill shot. People are a little bit low on him because of those 2 losses to Aspinall and Volkov. So outside of losing to Aspinall, Volkov literally fought the perfect fight, was able to use, his length. I don't see that happening this time around. I like Pavlovich. I think he does get the knockout on Rozenstruik. We've seen Rozenstruik knocked out as well before he got knocked out by Volkov, actually. And then prior to that, I think he got knocked out by Francis Ngannou. So, yeah, Rozenstruik can get knocked out. I think Pavlovich does find the kill shot in this one. And we'll move on to the next one. All right, now we're in the co-main. We have Shara Magomedov versus Michael Venom Page. This is going to be a great matchup. Really hyped for this fight. I'm a big fan of both of these guys. I've been basically betting on Shara every fight since his debut against Bruno Silva. I was actually at that card. And also, similar with Michael Page, I bet on him to beat Kevin Holland. I obviously think Kevin Holland's an absolute bum. And then I stayed on Ian Gary on the Ian Gary side. So I think I can call these fighters pretty well in general since, I knew that Ian Gary, the wrestling, just mixing it up would cause trouble for someone like Michael Page. I know Ian Gary does have really high fight IQ, so he will switch it up. He will go to the grappling if needed. I was actually surprised at, the difference between the striking of Michael Venom Page and Ian Gary. I thought, it would be a bit closer, but Ian Gary would edge it out with the grappling. But seems like Ian Gary literally needed to rely on the grappling, which, he did. He used his fight IQ. He did do that, did get the win there. But someone like Michael Venom Page and Shara, we're not going to see any grappling in this matchup. This is going to be a straight striking fight, straight on the feet. Should be absolutely fun to watch for fans. And so with someone like Shara Magomedov, I'm going to pick Shara to win. Few reasons why I'm going to pick him to win. The one at hand is I think this is going to be a pretty close fight in general. I don't see this fight, finding a finish anywhere. I think both these guys are going to be pretty durable. And just both their fight styles, they don't necessarily go for finishes as much, since both these guys kind of staying at their own striking range and just doing things from there. Now, Michael Venom Page, his speed is unmatched. That's going to be good. But the reason why I think Shara kind of beats him, and it's going to be really hard for a fighter to beat Michael Venom Page in a pure striking match. I actually think Shara's base and Shara's style is the actual perfect kind of counter to Michael Venom Page, because I think if you're headhunting, if you're, in a regular striking match, you're trying to find Michael Venom Page coming in. His speed is way too good. You're not going to catch him on the way in. As he pops out, you're going to be out of range. He does have a pretty good reach. So for the most part, even if you're a really solid striker, you're going to find yourself either out of range or just not quick enough to catch Michael Page on the way in. But someone like Shara, he doesn't actually headhunt much. His striking style just relies on spamming kicks, low kicks, body kicks. And I think that's where you can actually catch Michael Venom Page coming in. You don't go headhunting on someone like MVP. You kind of have to catch him on the body, kick and move. I think Shara is going to do that. So when Michael Venom Page lunges in, he definitely will land here and there on Shara, but I think Shara can just rack up those kicks coming in. I think that's what's going to get him the rounds. So I think Shara gets this one on the scorecards. I definitely think they're going to be close fighting rounds. And then obviously, lastly, we are in Saudi Arabia, so we're going to give Shara the home field advantage, close striking rounds. Probably give it to Shara anyways. So I think what will probably be close-ish striking rounds, Shara's going to be able to land, especially with the feet, and then give him the home court advantage as well. I think Shara is kind of the clear-cut pick for this matchup. But, MVP, solid striker, definitely big fan of him. I just think that the kick-heavy game plan is kind of just like the focus for beating someone like him. All right, now, for the main event, I got Israel Adesanya beating Nassourdine Imavov. Very, very tricky main event, in my opinion, to break down. I'm definitely not going to be betting either of these fighters in this matchup. I might bet an over round line. I've been looking at some of the overs. I think there might be something there. But outside of that, Izzy's going to be the pick. But I think it's just very tricky when you have someone like Izzy who's on a 2-fight skid, lost 3 of his last 4 fights. I mean, his last win was against literally the face of the UFC right now, Alex Pereira. But since then, lost to Sean Strickland, looked absolutely horrible in that. And then lost to Dricus, but he didn't look bad in that Dricus fight at all. I had Dricus beating him, but I thought he was actually up on the scorecards. I think that Dricus was actually up on the scorecards in reality, but I had Israel up on the scorecards, and I had a bet on Dricus to win that fight. So unbiased, I think Israel was doing pretty well in that DDP fight. Now, I don't think Nassourdine Imavov is going to have the takedowns of DDP. I don't think he's also going to have the striking style of DDP. So I think this is a pretty interesting matchup. It's kind of more of like a how good is Imavov and, where is Izzy in his career right now. I'm still going to pick Izzy, though, and I think the reason is that we saw Izzy kind of find his timing later on in that DDP fight, and DDP is a much harder striker to kind of get your timing on, because what the fuck is DDP doing on the feet? He just kind of like runs in, like, I don't know what the hell he does with his head. He just kind of wings punches. Really awkward striker to kind of find your timing on. When it comes to someone like Imavov is just a much more traditional technical fighter. I think that kind of plays into Izzy's wheelhouse. He's going to be able to find his timing a lot quicker on someone like Imavov. And then when it comes to the takedowns and the grappling, I think Imavov does have some in his back pocket that, who knows? I mean, Israel Adesanya, prime, Imavov's not touching him. He's just going to be able to, defend all the takedowns, get back into space, boom, get back into his striking. But Israel Adesanya today, he looks a little bit flat-footed when it comes to takedown defense. Does kind of get caught a little bit. We saw him get caught against DDP a few times, and then the one time where he did get subbed at the end of it. So on the takedowns, it's kind of hard to tell. I would say that, Izzy's takedown defense is good enough to hold off Imavov's takedowns, but it's just going to be interesting. I also think that, in a close early striking round where Izzy's still trying to find his timing, Imavov with some failed takedowns that, just kind of lead to a bunch of control time up against the fence could maybe swing the round in Imavov's favor. So a bunch of weird shit could happen in this fight. That's why I think it's a little bit tricky, but I think the most likely outcome, in my opinion, for this matchup is the fact that Izzy might start off a little bit slow in round 1. As he gets his timing on Imavov, he kind of picks up the pace, picks up the volume, definitely puts it on Imavov, defends takedown, stays in space, kind of like what we know Izzy for doing. So I'm going to go with Izzy. I definitely think he has the tools to beat Imavov. Is that the Izzy we're going to see? We're going to have to wait and find out. It's going to be interesting, but in general, I think Izzy does get it done. Like I said, though, I wouldn't bet on this fight. Think it's pretty tricky. All right, guys, that does it for the picks and predictions for this weekend. Make sure to check out our premium on kopicks.win. It's $20 a month. We've been performing really well, up 22.99 units over 13 cards. We had 9 profitable cards in those 13 and 4 cards where we were down units. One of them was UFC 311, so sorry about that. Where we did hit 3 out of our 4 bets, I just absolutely loaded up the one bet that we didn't hit. It'd be that way sometimes. And then, other cards, we were like very close to break even. I think one of the cards we were like down 0.06 units. So realistically, 3 lost cards, 1 break even card out of 13 cards, and 9 cards where we came out profitable. So check out kopicks.win. It's $20 a month. You can check out our UFC bets. It also just helps support the channel as well, support a lot of our short form content we do on Instagram. So if you haven't seen us on Instagram, definitely go check us out on Instagram. Do some cool short form content there. And yeah, good luck to everyone's bets for UFC Riyadh. I'll catch you guys next week for UFC 312.